Joined now by our Wednesday regular, TSN Hockey Insider, one half of the Rain Drags Hockey Podcast here, part of the Go-Goat Sports Network. Mr. Darren Dreger, how you doing, friend?
I'm doing well. No complaints. It's been, we talked about this last week, and I remind myself daily because we don't get the reprieve that it feels like I've enjoyed the last 3 weeks with the World Cup of Soccer and how that's taken over the network. Still the grind of all the goings on across the NHL with insider trading, but not doing that many games. So it's been good. It's been some light lifting around the inside.
Take the light lifting. Except with the Vancouver Canucks, who returned to their rightful place on insider trading yesterday after a week absence. And how dare they miss a week? I know it was LeBrun who did much of the reporting yesterday on Brock Boeser, but it's our first chance to talk to you, Drex. Let's just start with the big question here. How is it that we went from, no information to suddenly Brock Boeser's agent is out there caravanning looking for a trade for his client? What does that signal to you? How and when did this turn for Boeser and the Canucks?
Well, look, I mean, it's been pretty clear from a playing perspective that, whatever Bruce Boudreau needs to see in Brock Boeser, he hasn't seen on a consistent basis. So when you get to a place where you're about to be a healthy scratch and you're an established player like Brock Boeser is, you feel like you've earned your opportunity and your place in the lineup. But of course, that can fluctuate from game to game with all the scenarios. And then, now the legitimacy of your spot in that lineup is openly being questioned. I think that forces the player to consider ultimately how he fits moving forward. And so as soon as this story broke, obviously the rest of us are trying to play catch up here and go, okay, Boeser's name has always kind of been out there, but not really out there. So how did it get to a place where you've got both sides that seemingly recognize that maybe the best fit is the one that hits the reset button for Brock outside the organization? And that's exactly what it is. So when you look at the agent here, Ben Hankinson, this isn't a guy that does a lot of public grandstanding or campaigning. In fact, he doesn't do any of it. I think of how he managed Dustin Byfuglien file, right, with the Winnipeg Jets. And that was convoluted. It was complicated. And it was detrimental to the Winnipeg Jets as an organization because of how impactful it was. Yet Hankinson and Cheveldayoff and company found a way to manage that as best they could. And I think that's how Hankinson has handled Brock Boeser and the Vancouver Canucks. I'm sure there's disappointment from Brock's standpoint, but I don't feel like there's animosity. But there is a pure recognition from both sides that the best thing is to give him an opportunity and a fresh start. But it's got to fit with the bookwork of the Vancouver Canucks, and that's where it really gets convoluted.
Typically, Dregs, when the agent is out there looking for a trade, it means the organization has tried and failed. Yeah. Is that the case here, or is this a different circumstance?
Yeah, I keep on getting this question on social media. Like, why do they go to this car? What gets accomplished via the agent that wasn't via the management?
Yeah, well... Yeah, when we think of it in those terms, it sounds like that, the organization has gone down a path and has found nothing in their investigating. I don't think that it's as simple as that. I'm sure that Patrick Allvin has had conversations about Brock Boeser and just maybe didn't push it hard. Again, you get into the game of semantics. Is he being shopped? All of that. When you incorporate an agent, you're entrusting that agent is representing his client. You'd expect he's representing his client to the utmost ability. But in doing so, also understanding that it has to be the right fit for the team. And so it's almost like there's all hands on deck. But to me, and I haven't talked to anybody within the Canucks organization specifically about this, that amplifies the want of the player for change. Right? That's not just trying to find the best fit for Brock Boeser across the National Hockey League. No. That's like, no, let's put a priority on change for Brock Boeser because Brock feels like change is required. So when you bring the agent, in this case Hankinson, on board to help you facilitate that change, then that's being respectful of what the players' wishes are here.
Let's move up and down the roster here.
Can I just ask one more follow-up, Blake? Just because we're asking on our Bodog poll question, when should the Canucks trade him? The value is where it is now, Dregs. There's a belief here, and gosh, he played with Pettersson, that if he plays with Peter, he plays with Horvat, and he can score more goals, that there would be more value, and that maybe the Canucks would be better off trading him at the deadline or in the summer. Do you know whether that's the Canucks' consideration here, or is it just at the point where as soon as a palatable deal comes around, they're going to make the move and not worry about, whether they can rebuild as much value as possible here?
Well, I mean, palatable is the right way to put it, but that is also challenging because, it's a cap situation for all the teams that would be interested and are interested. And I know there are a few teams that are interested, but for cap reasons, they can't do it right now. I think of the Dallas Stars. Dallas is in the market for a top six. I think of the Calgary Flames. Calgary's made it abundantly clear, like they'd like to add, but they can't do it. Neither one of those teams can do it unless there's a way that you can make it work dollar in, dollar out. And, then it even gets more complicated. Could there be a team that would take on Brock right now if Vancouver was interested in retaining salary? Yeah, I believe that to be the case. I believe that they could find a team to take on Boeser if Vancouver retains. Vancouver isn't going to retain. They don't feel like they have to because, look, I think we all agree Brock Boeser is a good hockey player. And from an age standpoint, he ticks a lot of boxes for teams. There's a belief, take issue with this if you will, that he's a 20 to 25 goal guy. He's going to have to prove that, and let's see it when it happens. But if as a Canucks organization, you're putting that sort of expectation on what the new team is getting out of Brock Boeser, then there's got to be considerable return. And that's not eating salary to make sure that you can make that move.
It's a narrative that we hear a lot. No, wait till the asset rehabilitates itself and goes on a bit of a tear. Does that actually happen? Like if he gets 5 goals in the next 10 games and the stats all of a sudden look good, the rate of scoring looks good for the year, is that going to sway a GM, or have they made up their mind on what Brock Boeser is already?
Yeah, I don't think it sways GMs, Blake. I don't. And I think it's an excellent point here. You know what sways general managers, and it's the reason I talked about Jake Chychrun on insider trading, is when you see a player come off injury who's had a setback in that rehab process, and then he plays, in this case, 7 games, and let's see how he does, at 10 and see how he is at 15. But he's delivering. He's playing top minutes. He's productive with 3 goals and 3 assists, and the shot is there, and everything that you saw in Jake Chychrun is there, and he hasn't slipped even a little bit because of the injury. That matters more to the general manager than a short period where, we kind of had this player penciled in here, but for the last 10 games, he's played above what our expectation was, so we better move on him now or the price is going to go up. I think generally pro scouting departments and general managers do a good job in figuring out what they've got in that asset.
The Bo Horvat file really doesn't have any terribly new chapters other than an injury in Colorado on top of another injury. They're still missing Landeskog. McKinnon is dinged now too, but neither is gone for the year. So it's not like you got that LTIR money to just easily slip a guy like Horvat in. The thing is that we all know, Darren, that they have to move some money out. Like somebody in this group has to go. Nobody is easy to move for various, and they're all for different reasons, difficult to move. Like when does the story get further? Like when the Canucks are eventually going to have to decide what big chunk of money leaves, and it's hard to know when that's going to be.
Right. And you look at the obvious suspects. I mean, we've just talked at length about Brock Boeser. So that alleviates some of the pain if you're able to make that move between now and the trade deadline. The Tyler Myers, those trade speculations, and rumor have been out there for a good stretch of time. That feels like a stretch to make that happen unless, you're taking that bad deal like was rumored involving Nikita Zaitsev from the Ottawa Senators. So that's why I think Patrick Allvin and company continue to have, more than one ball in the air. Of late, it's Boeser. Prior to that, it was Myers. Horvat is always kind of hanging out there because of the contract or lack thereof. I still think that the Vancouver Canucks see a place for Bo Horvat, not just because of what we're seeing on the ice, but obviously what he brings to the organization. But as we touched on last week, it almost feels like it's getting to a place in the near future here where Vancouver goes to the Horvat camp and says, okay, we really haven't had any sort of meaningful negotiation. That's on the club. That's not on the player, right? The player has earned his place as a pending unrestricted free agent. So if I'm Newport, I'm going, okay, well, he doesn't really have anything to consider. Put something meaningful on the table, and then we'll consider. Because otherwise, the organization, I'm sure, wants to know what Horvat is thinking. Does he see a fit in Vancouver long term, even though if the Canucks have to go through some form of renovation? That's where it gets pretty dicey to me. So, look, if Bo Horvat is in play, I don't think they have trouble moving him, especially because of an expiring deal. But for a team like the Colorado Avalanche to come back to the Nate McKinnon injury and Landeskog and everything, it's remarkable how the Colorado Avalanche are finding a way to stay above water. And they've had their share of struggles, but I think we all could see they're still going to be a contending team here. The problem is, as you articulated, Blake, those players are coming back. And so when you're bringing in a heavier hit on your cap, you're going to have to find space for that to comply when those players come back. So it gets a little bit more complicated again.
There's been some scuttlebutt that maybe the Vancouver Canucks want to re-sign Luke Schenn. He is a right-shot defenseman. That is their weakest organizational position. Yeah. And as we all know, intangibles for days here with Luke. That said, boy, is he an attractive trade ship as a right-shot defenseman who has rehabilitated a career, has all that character.
Unreal.
The other thing he does, he hits people and he hits with purpose. Yeah. And there's not a lot of that profile of defenseman out there in the National Hockey League anymore. What do you think he's worth, Drex? Like, do you think he could fetch a first or a second round pick? And do you think are you believing any of this talk about re-signing with Vancouver?
I believe in the re-sign story. I do. Only because I've had communications with management, not recently, but historically, specifically about Luke Schenn. And, I'll remind you guys, when we were talking recently about the latest round of, is Bruce Boudreau going to make it? Should he be fired? When is he going to be fired? All of that. One of the main reasons for change when you look at the lack of structure and all of that, which, is finger pointing at the head coach, is the team concept that management is so fixated on, right? So if you really have bought into team concept and developing your young players the right way, then you want to make sure that they continue to be surrounded by top-notch character, and that's what Luke Schenn is. So I think that the investment in keeping Luke Schenn on a shorter term outvalues whatever you're going to get back. Unless somebody, I don't think they get a first-round draft pick for Luke Schenn. If somebody is offering a first-round draft pick for Luke Schenn, and I love the man, I think he's a terrific player. He's a throwback. We've seen that time and time again. He was on the scrap heap. He literally was not that long ago. And now we're talking about a first or a second round draft pick. That has to be considered. But given the state where the Canucks are and where they see them getting to in the near future, as early as next season, provided that the roadmap and everything that I expect this team is going to go through for the remainder of the season stays the same, they're going to need Luke Schenn next year.
Canuck fans,
believe me, I can't believe first round pick came out of my mouth, Dregs. But
that was
Brandon
tough one,
Hagel. No, but you look at previous deadlines and the type of forwards that Tampa traded for Brandon Hagel. When that sort of cost-controlled player goes for the high price, dare to dream here as a Canucks fan. Sorry, Blake.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. Like, I think people forever want the Canucks to pull off the Ben Sherratt trade, like to get that. I can't believe
Benny Sherratt's a better player than Luke Schenn, though. I'm sorry, but he is.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Not saying they won't get a good pick for him. I look, the way he's playing now, there wouldn't be many contending teams in the National Hockey League that don't look at their third pairing and go, you know what, holy smokes, This guy's durable. Gritty is an understatement and oozes character. So if they decide to trade him, they're not going to have a problem getting a quality return.
Marvelous stuff, Darren. Appreciate this. Thank you for the time. We'll catch up next Wednesday.
All right. Love the headgear, fellas. Sekeres and Price. I've got a Sekeres and Price shirt. No, I've got part of it.
Here we go. All right.
I've got the T-shirt. The Go-Go company, they furnished us with some nice Sekeres and Price swag, but I don't have.
We'll get you a hat.
Okay. All right. We're going to get him a hat. Guys. Here's the other thing. We've got a green room down the hall here at Wall Center that is loaded with Ray and Dreg swag. So just let us know.
It's right here.
We'll send it over to
you. That's where the swag budget goes to. Sekeres and Price. I got it.